and readings from the Pavilion End, speaking to you from the Barossa Valley, just north of Adelaide, 2 days before the third test between Australia and England at Adelaide. I'm sitting outside our very comfortable holiday accommodation. Apologies for random bird and traffic noise. It's not really a preview because we're not quite sure who's going to be playing. It looks as though England are replacing Gus Atkinson with Josh Tongue, but will otherwise be unchanged. Obviously, Pat Cummins and Nathan Lyon will return for Australia, which is something for England to worry about. The big talk is whether Usman Khawaja will open and Travis Head moved down to number 5, where he's scored hundreds of runs for Australia at Adelaide. That's not clear yet. This would be my 4th Ashes test at Adelaide. Adelaide's one of those places people say you would never go there unless you had a particular reason for going. I think it's actually rather a very attractive small city, and is certainly a great place for something like this. The Adelaide Oval is so rich with history, and despite, or perhaps because of the redevelopment, remains a fantastic venue. I'll say a little something about my 3 previous test matches here. The score's 2-1 so far to Australia. My first visit here was in 2002-03. Of course, Australia won the series. It was, I think, the second test at Adelaide. The game was, in some ways, not unlike the recent Brisbane test. England batted first, and Michael Vaughan got a wonderful century. The first of his 300s on that tour was out, I think, just before the close of play, and England got 300 plus, 340 maybe. Australia got something like 550. Ricky Ponting got a big 100. Damien Martin got 95, I think. England went in again and were just not up to it against that tremendous attack. Glenn McGrath, Jason Gillespie, Shane Warne, Andy Bickle. England were all out for like 170 or something. So that was that. Now, the next game, 2010-2011, this is one of my favourite test matches of all time. Let's just recall the fact that, was it after 2 overs, Australia were 0 for 2. Simon Katic out for a diamond duck, run out without facing a ball. Ricky Ponting out in the same over to Jimmy Anderson. This was just after the amazing draw at Brisbane, where England had finished up their second innings at 500 for 2. They just carried on. Alistair Cook, the chef, got a big century. Kevin Peterson got a double century. I think Jonathan Trott might have got 100 as well. Anyway, England just overwhelmed the Australians. Absolutely fantastic. My friends and I had an afternoon at the Barossa after the game finished on the 5th day. Now, the next test, in my recent blog, I was saying, for England to win in Australia, everything has to be exactly right. Australia have to be either quite bad or going through a transition. England have to be at their best. In 2013-14, the extraordinary thing was that the England side was not that different from the side that toured in 2010-11. Of the top 6, the only person who wasn't there was the captain, Andrew Strauss. And Stuart Broad played a full part in this series, which he hadn't in 2010-11. So, England ought to do pretty well, surely. No, England lost 5-0. And they had, the destroyer was Mitchell Johnson, who helped win the first test and destroyed Jonathan Trott's test career. The second test, he got 7 for, I think, Australia batted first. This was the classic sort of how to win a test match in Australia. Australia batted first and got 500 plus. This is what you want to do. You want to win a test match in Australia, bat first, get 500. Michael Clarke got 150. England went in, and I'll never forget, one of the most exciting things I've seen on a cricket field, Alistair Cook bowled by Mitchell Johnson for 3. Really sensational. Michael Carberry, remember him, Hampshire player, played 6 test matches, I think 1 against Bangladesh, 5 against Australia, never let anybody down, but in this losing side, he never played again. He was adhesive. That's what you want if in that sort of position. Brendan McCullum doesn't really believe in adhesive, but there we go. England were all out for, 300 or so, maybe less. Australia battered again just to pile on the misery. England needed 500 to win in the fourth innings. Joe Root got 87 until recently, his highest score in Australia. Matt Pryor got a few, but Australia won by a couple of hundred runs. So, a couple of other test matches in Adelaide, one, of course, as an English person, one ought to recall, not least, of course, 1932-33, remember, Bodyline. England won by 338 runs. That's the sort of result you want to see. And this was the famous game which brought Bodyline to a head. Bill Woodfull, the Australian captain, was hit over the heart by Harold Larwood, staggered about a bit, and at the end of that day, I think the third day, Plum Warner, the England manager, came to the Australian dressing room to see Woodfull, and Woodfull famously said, "I don't want to see you, Mr. Warner. There are two sides out there. One of them is playing cricket. The other one isn't even trying." The huge diplomatic scandal, but, England won the series. 1954-55, the fourth test at Adelaide, England retained the Ashes. Remember, they'd lost the first test at Brisbane calamitously, but won the next two because of the pace pair, well, particularly the pace of Frank Tyson. And Tyson was also a pivotal figure in the Adelaide test. Anyway, I'm sure Brendan McCullum will say, with some justification, all this history is irrelevant. And maybe it is, but Bazball's own history is not completely irrelevant. It's not as if this is the first time the wheels, as it were, have fallen off Bazball. It's proved to be terrific, very exciting, and terrifically successful against the less resourceful sides. When England toured India a couple of years ago, it was, they won the first test thanks to a fantastic innings from Ollie Pope. But after that, it wasn't so successful, and often you get feeling that they could do better if they were to take a bit more time. This is the batters. And even Joe Root, as often people recall, seemed to slightly lose his marbles during that tour and then got back together again. And, it does seem to be an issue of, can one learn from one's mistakes? But McCullum's latest words along the lines of, we don't want to have too extreme a reaction from what's going on, don't give one much hope that things are going to change. Let's face it, we've had 6 days cricket in this series. My own view was that Brisbane was in a sense worse than Perth. I mean, Perth, at lunchtime in England, were in a dominant position. They lost with a calamitous batting in that second innings and then an almost freak innings from Travis Head. But Brisbane was worse because it was Australia just keeping it simple and showing anybody who cared to notice how Test cricket ought to be played. Numbers 10 and 11, just straight bat, keep the ball out. Bat for time. Make sure England are batting at the worst possible time. If only we could learn from that. The weather, it's beautiful here in the Barossa. We're told that the forecast is for Wednesday and Thursday. The game starts on Wednesday. We're talking about 37, 38, 39 degrees. Brutal, as Jeff Lemon called it on the Final Word podcast. So it's going to be tough for the spectators, let alone the players. Bat first, get 500, and see what your bowlers can do. What I'm hoping for is a terrific, competitive game. And if England will win, so much the better. I'll be reporting to you, I hope, after each day. In the meantime, good evening from the Barossa Valley. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Now, please subscribe, as you can do that by looking at the website where you found this. Recommend to your friends, and I'm more than happy to take requests. Thank you.